Hi, and welcome to another episode from the New Lore Code channel. It is lovely having you back. Today, I really wanted to dive into the topic of how to build emotional connections through your branding. Because undeniably, that's one of the most important reasons for branding, right? It's one of the main purposes that your branding should be serving. And obviously you want brand recognition, right? You want people to look at the very specific blue that you use in your logo and recognize immediately that that's you. Or they want to see a little logo, a flower, and recognize immediately that that's you. Excuse me. And of course you want brand recognition and that will come with branding. But one of the most important things that you want it to do immediately is form emotional connections with your audience. Because that's how you get them to go from consumer or potential consumer into loyal partner, loyal companion on your journey, right? I've spoken about this before, that every brand needs to know who they are and where they're going. They need to know who they are as a fully fledged character with depth, and they need to know their plot. Right? So if your brand is essentially think of yourself as an Uber, it's like before you get in there, you need to know who's driving and where you're going. And if it sounds fun enough, people are going to be like, all right, I'm in, I'm coming with. So you want to do the same thing as a brand. And the reality is that a lot of the things that people use in their branding, or not even branding, because some people don't quite have... They have a logo, but they don't really have like a brand identity. And I'm going to dive more into what that means. This is going to be a little confusing for a second, maybe. You're just going to have to let me freestyle this. But when a customer, for example, lands on your website for the first time, in the span of like a fraction of a second, like in the time it takes them to blink, they've basically made a value judgment on who you are, your services, whether they think you can help them, whether you're going to be a right fit. It's just like that. And some people are going to take a little longer to, are we sure? I don't know. What do they do? But a lot of people within the first fraction of a second have already basically made almost the entire decision. Why? And it's because subconsciously we're taking in thousands of little value points that are all over your social media or your website. And I'm talking things from like your color choices, your typography, your images, the layout. All of that is sending little subconscious data points, and it's either building up your narrative, like what you want to tell people that you do or who you are, or it's tearing it down. And so like one of my services that I offer is a narrative content audit. And so far my clients have all been fairly large corporations, very well established. They've been in their respective markets for decades, if not hundreds of years. I've got one that was like in business about 100 years or 110. Very obviously multi-generational family business, huge corporation. And they all have the same problem. It's like they have a brand and they have websites and they have apps and things, but the reality is that like when you sit down to do the initial chatting, the initial interviews with everybody who's relevant, it starts to come out like they have a perception of themselves about who they are, their mission, their values, etc., even their passions, right? A lot of these people are incredibly passionate about the work that they do. They really genuinely like the work that they do with people in whatever service that they're doing. And then you go to their website and it's like just sorely lacking. It's a little clumsy to navigate. The color choices are not quite right with, they're not aligned with the emotions that they want to generate in people. Maybe the typography is not quite there. The photos, maybe they're too fake, right? Really fake stock photography will really do you in. Or there aren't any photos at all, stuff like this. And so that's one of the things that I do in my content audits, is not just do profound audit, but then I have to give you recommendations on how to realign everything, right? It's like, okay, so if this is our narrative that we're going for, these are all the little steps that you can do to bring all of these elements into alignment so that you actually have a brand identity across all your platforms that builds up and carries that narrative forward instead of just anchoring you down. Like I had a client or a lead really reach out to me the other day, and I thought, I don't know if we'll move forward to talking together, but immediately they wanted an audit, and immediately, like within 3 seconds of being on their website, I can tell you that clients are bouncing off their website because what they're telling you that they want to do for you isn't immediately evident in how they run their own website. And so what do I mean by this? That they have a service, while keeping it very general, they have a service that essentially is going to make your life easier as a business owner, right? They are promising ease, that you can get this load off your to-do list. They will handle it, easy peasy, right? They're making your life simpler. And then their website, on the other hand, is clunky to navigate, can't find their services easily. It's the opposite of easy. And so what is that telling clients is that, you're telling them about how you're going to make their life so much easier and you're going to streamline this and blah, blah, blah. But then they go to your website and they can barely navigate and they're like, absolutely not. It just tells them, it's like, if you can't even make navigating your own website easy, how are you going to make anything else easy for them? Easy, very easy problem to solve. Honestly, this client, we could do an incredible just revamp of that website and solve 80% of those problems, because that's really what it is. It's an organization problem of like the flow of everything. And then we can bring into alignment colors and fonts and photos and whatever, and you will really create a look and feel that builds up the brand. But that's really one of their major problems. So anyway, easy peasy to solve. And so that's what I mean. So sometimes it's like we don't really pay attention. Like when we think of branding, we think of a logo, maybe a brand color, a couple details. Really good branding designers will obviously give you all that. Like that's what I do when I do branding for clients. That's what everybody I follow that does branding does an excellent job of that, right? You get not just your logos and your submarks, but you get your typography guide and aligned colors and things like that. So that's all great. What I do that might be slightly different, although I'm sure a lot of designers are thoughtful about this too, is that you try to align, you don't just use things for their aesthetic value. You want them to be sort of aligned with they have to connect to something emotionally. And so colors are very important. They're an easy example of this, that colors carry different energy or associations in the hearts of people. And there's some variability between cultures, but by and large, a lot of them have the same associations across the world, right? And so if you want to create something that is soothing and, you go for blues. If you want something high energy, yellow is a great color, but that one's maybe a little divisive. Not everybody likes yellow. It's funny, yellow is one of those colors where either people like love it or hate it. It has very little middle ground. Red can be aggressive, but also, really, really good for some food brands. And so it really depends. And so when you anchor your colors, you don't just pick, our colors are going to be, yellow, lilac, and periwinkle just because, even though they're very close, but whatever. You want to choose them based on what you're trying, who you are, right? Your archetypes and stuff, and then what feelings you're hoping to get from people. And, if that aligns with what you want to do aesthetically, then great. I mean, obviously a good designer can do both, right? It's like, yes, you need to use orange because that would be the most aligned with your archetypes and your plot and whatever. Here's a good shade of orange. Here's a beautiful shade of orange that we can work with. It doesn't just have to be, Crayola basic orange or whatever. So these are all these things. I lost my train of thought here for a minute, but so that's how I recommend it. So if you're going to DIY your own branding, even though I recommend hiring out to somebody because it's just, I know sometimes it could be a big investment, but you know, all these people that do branding by and large are really going to help you out, because it just has a different impact when you go to somebody who knows what they're doing with branding and can align colors and fonts and whatever, and then just being able to walk away with like a guide that then you can give to your website person if you want one, or that you can follow to build your website. It's just going to make everything so much easier. But the way I approach branding in this way, so bringing it back to our topic, right? I'm babbling. I'm so sorry, guys. So how to build emotional connections through branding. For me, that unequivocally means that you have to build everything on top of the narrative structure. You have to. Because like I've said now a bunch of times during this video, you must know who you are, where you're going. From that is your scaffolding for everything else that you will do. That's going to determine your colors, your typography, your whatever. And that's the best way to approach branding. I'll give you an example too. Who would be a good one? We had a brand. I'll tell you, we had a brand who was in the finance sector and very pretentious sort of marketing. And they knew it. They knew something wasn't working, but they didn't know how to do anything else. They were sort of top of their field. So they didn't, so to them, it didn't feel wrong to just be like, we're number one, we're so great, whatever. But people don't generally like that from their financial institutions. It doesn't garner a ton of trust. People already distrust financial institutions to begin with, like banks and investors and stuff like that. So it just wasn't going to be a good case to lean into that. And then you go to their website and everything just felt very sterile and a little dated, and the photos were incredibly fake. And so one of the things, it's like, but then you speak to the people and they're very, very invested. They love working for people. They want the best for them financially and everything. So this misalignment of like who they are internally and then what they're telling people is so vast. And so I was like, okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to soften everything. And so we changed their colors a little bit. We softened them. We brought them into like the blues. That made a big deal as far as like just creating a really soothing look, trustworthy. The fonts, we changed them. They decided that they were going to go with a new tagline about, I'm not going to reveal it so I don't reveal the client, but something about like, hey, we're all moving forward, come with us, or you're coming along too, basically. Like if we all do well, then you do well. Or when we do well, everybody does well, essentially. It was something like that. And so then we chose a font for the titles that's a little elongated, really good, really modern, minimal, but it's a little expanded. And so it has this feeling of movement, of, hey, we're moving, we're coming, we're all doing great. Come on, get on this train, right? So all these little elements, and then the photos, we had them shoot all new photos. I recommended a photography style that I thought would work for them. We looked into local photographers. We found them one that works. At first they were like, well, why would we pay for a photographer when we can just buy stock? And I'm like, trust me, you're going to want to do this. And honestly, a photographer is not even all that expensive, realistically, especially for a brand of this size. It's like, look, do the good photo shoot, get good photos of everybody, of like your actual team members, of your location, etc., with this look and feel, with the same unified editing style, and it's going to look really sharp. And it did, and it just humanized the whole brand, because now there were real people. It's not just like perfect stock figures that are just like, it's just actual people from within the company. And so like now their passions and their friendliness comes through, and it's just a completely different vibe from when you start, right? And so you took it from sterile and generic and unlikable, and you soften it and you humanize it all through all these cues that help carry that narrative forward and help build emotional connections with your audience. So that's probably where I'm going to leave this video. I'm sure there are lots of questions. I don't usually get a lot of comment questions. I like answering them though. So if you have any, please drop them in the comments, and maybe I'll do a follow-up or something like that. I really, it's obviously easier to do this when you have client questions. That's why I liked the last video I did. Got a bunch of questions from friends and clients and stuff that they wanted to know about generic marketing or generic narratives. And so with that, I think I'll leave you. Give me a like and a follow if you think I've earned it. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Same thing, if you guys have questions about potential topics that you want me to cover, drop them in the comments or just DM me. You can follow me everywhere at New Lorco. Everywhere, basically. Instagram, Threads, Twitter, Pinterest. So just find me everywhere. And with that, have a good day. Bye.